love me do. Um, a follow-up vid. I just have to do it. I've got to get it off my conscience or off my chest or something. Just listen to the second side of that CD, the White Album by the Beatles. One I'd forgot I had. And thank again Andrew from Parlogram Auctions for getting me interested and actually looking and going, well, I do have a copy of that. I'll put it on. And I tell you what, I've always liked the White Album, but I never actually owned it because a couple of my friends bought it at the time and it was a double album, so it cost more. And I was 68, I was buying a lot of Hendrix and Cream and Big Brother and the Holding Company and Dr. John the Night Tripper and John Mayall and the Blues Breakers and Paul Butterfield Blues Band. There's so many albums to buy and so little money to buy them with. So a couple of my friends bought the White Album, and so I heard it plenty of times and I liked it. But they had shitty little, not dance sets, but not good quality record players. So it's I like the album, but I just didn't buy it. And the thing is, the last time I really listened to it was in 2009 when I got the Chinese bootlegs of the mono box, Beatles mono box. I didn't know it was a bootleg, but I thought it was super cheap. And when it arrived, I went, oh shit, it's a bootleg. But the actual CDs sound terrific. So, and it's got the mono White Album, which is I prefer because some tracks are so different, they're almost like a different mix. They could be, for all I know. A bit like Satanic Majesties, their Satanic Majesties Request by the Stones. I've got a bootleg of a mono bootleg, which is a needle drop from either a German or a US dedicated mono mix. It's not a roll down mono. It's not a roll down stereo. It's an actual mono mix, and it kicks butt. I love them both. I love the stereo, which is the one I grew up with, and I have, my original. Then I have my original mono too, vinyl Stones, but that mono I didn't play much because it didn't sound as good as the stereo. But the thing is, as soon as I heard the needle drop mono, I went, holy mackerel! Roll down stereo monos are shocking. They're even worse than reprocessed mono for stereo. It's like you can't win with either of those setups. But so I love the Satanic Majesties in stereo and mono equally, and they're different. Like the mono kicks butt and it's super psychedelic, whereas people mistake that the panning on stereo to be psychedelic. It's not. It's just panning. That's all it is. Psychedelic is something else altogether. And if I've got a VG double plus Sergeant Pepper's original Australian First Press, and my God, and that's what Andrew from Parlogram Auction said today too. He said that the mono. He wasn't specifically talking about Sergeant Pepper, but on Sergeant Pepper it really shows what he was talking about. He said the mono mixes, the dedicated mono mixes, sound almost three-dimensional, and they do, honestly. Even though it's not spread like stereo, it's more centered, but it's got depth. It's square. It's that wide and it's that wide and that deep. Whereas with the stereo, it's that wide, and but the sound's only that deep really because it's spread too far out. Hard to explain in words. But so I got that. I didn't get the 3D effect from listening to the mono CD of the White Album, but it kicks butt. Just like it kicks butt where it needs to kick butt. I mean, I just heard Helter Skelter on this 30th anniversary, which I forgot to say in the last video. Andrew said that his third favourite White Album pressing is a CD, which was the first CD issued in '87, because it's a flat transfer. It's just transferred to digital, no fiddling with it. And the reason why he liked the 30th anniversary, which was 10 years after that, and which is now 30 years later, this is scary shit. That also is a flat transfer, according to him. It was just the master tape from Abbey Road, just digitalised, nothing done to it. And so it just sounds, it should, by all rights, technically sound exactly the same as a mint vinyl press. And I'd say the vinyl would still be a fraction better because there's just something magic about vinyl. But this CD I just played, and I've had this thing sitting in my collection for 35 years now. I think I might have played it once when I was down on the Beatles at the time. I'll tell you why. I was heavily into Husker Du, thrash metal, Slayer, Fetus Interruptus, Nick Cave and the Birthday Party. I was really into that stuff. And the Beatles were just like, oh, forget it, That was then. And not only that, what turned me off was I bought a few of the Beatles solo albums as they came out. And they just got more and more. You just go, each time you buy it, you think, and this is before YouTube or internet or anything. You just had to buy them to hear them because they wouldn't play. Half of them they didn't play on the radio out here. So you think, if it was on special, you'd buy it and hope it'd be good, but it never was. It was just like, you just got so depressed listening to the latest solo Beatle albums that when the reissued 20th anniversary set came out on CD, I wasn't excited at all. I thought, that's in the past. The Beatles are shit, forget it. And that's when all these young people in their 50s started to get into the Beatles. I just realised, that's really where a lot of them would have heard the Beatles for the first time on CD. And a lot of those weren't even good sounding CDs. They were dreadful. But according to Andrew, I'll take his word for it because he's got millions of copies and he's heard millions of copies, that's his third favourite version of the White Album. So I have the 30th. I've just played it. I've heard things on there that I've never heard before. Like it's clear, it's warm, and it's punchy. It's got all the attributes of a mono mix, and yet it's a stereo mix. If someone had put that on, and I had to listen to another room so I couldn't see if there were any speakers or anything, they'd say, "What do you think that is?" And I'd say, "Gee, that sounds like a near mint mono mix of the White Album." So there's not a lot of difference between the mono and the stereo mix, though I think some of the tracks on the mono, they definitely either when I first heard the mono back in the late 70s at a friend's place, he put it on. I said, "Wow, that track sounds completely different to what." And when I picked it up, I went, "Oh shit, this is a mono." And I looked for a mono copy for ages after that, and I never found one in the wild because it really impressed me. And I've just been re-impressed all over again. I've just changed my mind. It's late stage in life. My new favourite Beatle album of all time is the White Album. It works. This one just works. Even Obla-Di Obla-Da, which is another reason why I didn't want to buy it, because I couldn't stand it, And yet it's bearable on here. You barely even notice that the bass is up there. You can hear the bass clearly. There's guitar things going on that I didn't hear on the originals, whether it was just the cheap systems the guys were playing their records on. I don't know. That's probably the main reason. But I just heard, and I always like Revolution No. 9. That's the one everyone goes, "Oh God, it's awful. Funny they didn't put that on there." It's almost my favourite track. And I just played it then, and I actually was laughing and had tears of laughter and just coming out, mate, because I'm an old acid head. And that track is LSD, big time. That's LSD, pure LSD, not rubbish. It's called LSD these days. That's LSD. And I just went, oh my God. And it was just so good. And there's sounds in there that I'd never heard before. And to end with, even the Ringo tracks are great. Like Don't Pass Me, and whatever that song is he does is all right. But that last track where Ringo sings John's song, Good Night, it's so gorgeous. That's another reason why it's now my favourite Beatles album. It's surpassed my Mono Sgt. Pepper's after 60 years. I've decided that's my favourite Beatles album now. And I will be playing it more often because I always went, wow, they should have ended. They should have just stopped after this album. You know, good night's the perfect way to say good night and goodbye, everybody, because I've never really liked Abbey Road. Yes, it's got great production, but to me, it's just gutless sort of music. There's nothing, you know, it just doesn't do it for me. And Let It Be, I won't even talk about that. But so, yeah. And then another thing is I thought, now, Revolution Number 9, who is this influence? Basically, it's like I'm the Walrus, but taken to, you know, Wagnerian bloody lengths, you know, and and I thought this sounds like the Residents, you know, with what the Residents sound like. You know, I've got a lot of Residents records. They basically sound, all their records sound like Revolution Number 9, but with the Chipmunks for vocals, you know, ooh, ee, ooh, ah, ah, bing, bang, walla, walla, bing, bang, well, that sort of shit. It sounds like a mixture of the Chipmunks and 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 then I thought DJ Shadow introducing, you know, my first hip hop, I think it's hip hop, whatever it is, record I ever bought, and I love that to death. And that was like, you know, almost like the whole album, sort of like Revolution Number 9, but in a different way, of course. It's run to 12 minutes. This is what an old man who doesn't have much excitement in his life looks like when he's happy and excited. Anyway, take care, all.